In the sun-drenched vineyards of modern Tuscany, a real-life tale unfolded that could have been ripped from the pages of a dramatic novel, but this one was grounded in the everyday struggles and triumphs of an Italian-American woman named Sophia. Born and raised in the bustling streets of New York City, Sophia had always dreamed of a life beyond the skyscrapers and honking taxis, a life filled with romance and adventure. She was in her late 20s when she first met Marco during a whirlwind vacation to Italy, where she was exploring her family's distant roots. Marco, the charming heir to a centuries-old vineyard estate just outside Florence, swept her off her feet with his easy smile and passion for winemaking. Their courtship was a fairy tale of sorts: long walks through rolling hills dotted with cypress trees, shared glasses of Chianti under starlit skies, and whispered promises of forever. Within a year, Sophia packed up her life in the Big Apple, leaving behind her job as a marketing coordinator for a small firm, her close-knit circle of friends, and the familiar chaos of urban living. She relocated to Tuscany for love, marrying Marco in a quaint ceremony at the family villa, surrounded by olive groves and the scent of blooming lavender. The wedding was intimate, with Marco's extended family filling the air with laughter and toasts. But even then, Sophia caught the first subtle glares from her new mother-in-law, Signora Isabella Rossi. Isabella was the epitome of old-world aristocracy, a woman in her early 60s who had inherited the vineyard from her late husband and ruled it with an iron fist wrapped in silk gloves. She came from a lineage of Florentine nobility, tracing her bloodline back to Renaissance patrons, and she carried herself with the poise of someone who believed the world owed her deference. Her days were spent overseeing the estate's operations, hosting elite wine tastings for international buyers, and mingling in Florence's high society circles, think exclusive galas at historic palazzos and luncheons with art collectors. Isabella's disdain for Sophia was immediate and thinly veiled, rooted in what she saw as an invasion by vulgar American excess. To Isabella, Sophia's New York roots screamed of brash commercialism, fast food and superficial glamour, nothing like the refined elegance she prized.
Cara, you must learn to appreciate the subtlety of our ways.
Isabella would say with a condescending smile during those early family gatherings, her voice laced with that aristocratic lilt that made Sophia feel like an outsider in her own home. The villa itself was a sprawling stone structure, perched on a hillside overlooking acres of meticulously tended vines that produced award-winning reds and whites. Sophia threw herself into adapting, eager to prove her worth. She started by helping in the kitchen, attempting to recreate traditional Tuscan dishes she'd learned from online tutorials and her grandmother's faded recipes. But Isabella was quick to sabotage these efforts. At Sunday lunches, a sacred ritual where the extended Rossi family gathered around a long wooden table laden with antipasti, fresh bread, and seasonal vegetables, Isabella would mock Sophia's attempts openly. "Cara, your pasta is edible, but not Italian," she'd declare, her laughter echoing through the high-ceilinged dining room as relatives nodded in polite agreement, their eyes darting uncomfortably between mother and daughter. Beyond the kitchen, Isabella's barbs extended to Sophia's integration into the local social scene. Florence, with its Renaissance architecture, bustling piazzas, and elite circles, was Isabella's domain. She spread gossip with the precision of a seasoned strategist, whispering to friends at cafe tables along the Arno River about how Sophia was a gold digger from across the Atlantic, implying that her marriage to Marco was more about the vineyard's wealth than love. These rumors filtered back to Sophia through well-meaning acquaintances, stinging like vinegar on an open wound. Invitations to events were mysteriously excluded. Sophia would hear about garden parties or wine festivals only after the fact, when Marco returned home with stories of the fun she'd missed. Mother said it was a small affair, he'd explain apologetically, but Sophia knew better. One particularly humiliating incident occurred during a regional wine expo in a nearby town, where Isabella forgot to include Sophia on the guest list for the Rossi booth, leaving her to wander the crowds alone while the family networked with buyers from as far as California and Australia. Sophia swallowed these insults for the sake of her marriage, confiding only in late-night calls to her sister back in New York.
"It's like she's testing me, seeing if I'll break."
She'd whisper into the phone, the villa's thick walls muffling her voice. Marco, caught in the middle, loved his mother deeply but adored Sophia's spirit. He'd defend her mildly, saying things like, "Give it time, amor. Mama is set in her ways," but he avoided confrontation, focusing instead on the vineyard's busy seasons, pruning in winter, harvesting in fall. Sophia, determined not to let Isabella win, began educating herself quietly. She enrolled in online courses about Italian culture and language, practicing phrases in the mirror to perfect her accent. But the turning point came after a particularly vicious family dinner where Isabella critiqued Sophia's choice of dress.
A simple sundress she'd bought in Florence as too American, too flashy.
Right in front of Marco's aunts and uncles. That night, lying awake beside her sleeping husband, Sophia vowed to turn the tables. Her cunning counterstrike began with secret preparations. Sophia had always been resourceful, a trait honed from navigating New York's competitive job market. She discovered a prestigious sommelier course offered discreetly online by a renowned Italian wine institute, one that required virtual tastings and in-depth studies of varietals, terroir, and pairings. For months, she dedicated early mornings and late evenings to it, hiding her notebooks in a drawer beneath recipe books. Marco assumed her increased interest in wine was just a hobby, but Sophia was building expertise to rival Isabella's. She practiced blind tastings in the villa's cellar, sampling bottles from the family's collection when no one was around, noting flavors like black cherry, leather, and earth that defined their estate's signature blends. The course culminated in a certification, which Sophia kept hidden, a secret weapon in her arsenal. As the annual harvest feast approached, a grand event where the Rossi family invited esteemed guests, including critics, buyers, and local dignitaries to celebrate the year's yield, Sophia saw her opportunity. The feast was held in the villa's expansive courtyard, under strings of twinkling lights, with long tables groaning under platters of roasted meats, cheeses, and fresh figs. Guests mingled with glasses in hand, the air filled with the hum of conversation and the distant strum of a guitarist. Sophia had gifted Isabella a rare vintage bottle earlier that week, presenting it as a peace offering. "I found this at a small auction in town. I thought you'd appreciate its history," she said sweetly, watching Isabella's eyes light up at the label, a supposed limited edition from a rival vineyard. One Isabella had long coveted. Unbeknownst to her, Sophia had carefully laced it with a harmless but potent laxative herb, sourced from a local herbalist under the guise of buying remedies for indigestion. The herb, derived from senna leaves, was natural and undetectable in the wine's robust profile, causing no lasting harm but guaranteeing discomfort within an hour of consumption. The evening unfolded perfectly. Isabella, ever the connoisseur, insisted on opening the bottle during the toast, pouring generous glasses for herself and a select few VIPs. "This is exquisite," she proclaimed, swirling the liquid in her glass before taking a sip, her guests following suit. Sophia watched from across the table, her heart pounding but her expression serene. As the meal progressed, courses of antipasto, pasta al ragu, and grilled lamb, Isabella began shifting uncomfortably in her seat. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead despite the cool autumn breeze. She excused herself once, then twice, her face paling with each hurried trip to the villa's powder room. By the third time, whispers rippled through the crowd. Guests exchanged glances as Isabella muttered apologies, her usual composure cracking. "This wine, it's cursed," she gasped to a nearby friend, clutching her stomach before dashing off again. The humiliation was palpable. Isabella, the self-proclaimed queen of Tuscan wine, reduced to repeated absences during her own event, her reputation as an unflappable hostess tarnished in front of the very people whose opinions mattered most. Sophia, raising her own glass of untouched water disguised as wine, turned to Marco with a serene smile. "Sometimes, the grapes of wrath ripen unexpectedly," she said softly, her words lost in the murmur of the crowd. Marco chuckled, assuming it was a clever pun, oblivious to the deeper meaning. As the night wore on, the incident became the unspoken elephant in the room. Guests politely avoided mentioning it, but the damage was done. Word spread through Florence's social circles faster than wildfire in dry vines. Isabella Rossi, undone by her own prized bottle. Her status as the family's wine expert took a hit. Buyers hesitated on future deals. Critics penned subtle jabs in reviews. and family members began deferring to Sophia's growing knowledge instead. In the aftermath, Sophia found the respect and autonomy she'd long deserved. Marco, seeing his mother's overreach backfire, supported Sophia more openly, and the villa felt less like a battleground. Isabella, chastened but too proud to admit defeat, retreated somewhat, her barbs dulled by the memory of that fateful feast. Sophia thrived, eventually taking a role in the Vineyard's marketing, blending her New York savvy with Tuscan tradition. Under the Tuscan sun, she had not just survived but conquered, proving that even in the old world, a determined spirit could rewrite the rules. But this was just the beginning of Sophia's journey. As the seasons turned, new challenges emerged, testing the fragile peace she'd won. Isabella, though humbled, wasn't one to fade quietly into the background. She began plotting her own subtle comebacks, enlisting allies in the family to question Sophia's decisions on everything from vine pruning techniques to event planning. One crisp winter morning, as snow dusted the hills, a rare sight in Tuscany, Sophia overheard Isabella on the phone with Marco's cousin, discussing ways to remind that American of her place. It was a spark that reignited Sophia's vigilance, leading her to delve deeper into the estate's history, uncovering old family secrets buried in dusty ledgers in the attic. These documents revealed financial discrepancies from Isabella's early management days, hints of corner-cutting that could explain the vineyard's occasional dips in quality. Sophia kept this knowledge close, like a vintner aging a fine reserve, waiting for the right moment to uncork it. Meanwhile, life in Tuscany settled into a rhythm for Sophia. She formed bonds with local women through a community cooking class in a nearby village, sharing stories of her dual heritage over pots of simmering tomato sauce. These friendships became her lifeline, offering advice on navigating Italian family dynamics and even introducing her to herbal remedies. Ironically, the same source she'd used for her revenge. Marco, sensing the shift, planned romantic getaways to the coast, where they'd stroll hand in hand along pebbled beaches, the Adriatic Sea lapping at their feet. "You've brought new life to this place," he'd tell her, his eyes reflecting the sunset's glow. Yet, beneath the surface, tensions simmered. At a spring festival celebrating the first blooms, Isabella made a pointed comment about Sophia's exotic recipes diluting tradition, sparking a hushed argument in the kitchen that left Marco mediating once more. Sophia's sommelier expertise grew, earning her invitations to independent tastings where she impressed with her palate. One evening, at a gathering in a Florence enoteca, she correctly identified a rare varietal blindfolded, drawing applause from attendees who'd long revered Isabella. News of this feat reached the villa, prompting Isabella to double down on exclusion tactics, like forgetting to inform Sophia of board meetings for the estate. But Sophia was ready. She started documenting everything: emails, conversations, even photos of tampered kitchen supplies, building a dossier of evidence. This meticulous approach, born from her marketing background, turned the power dynamic on its head. As summer approached, with the vines heavy with grapes, the family prepared for another harvest. This time, Sophia proposed innovations like sustainable farming practices she'd researched, drawing from American trends in organic viticulture. Isabella scoffed at first, calling it faddish nonsense, but when a visiting expert from Napa Valley praised the ideas, she was forced to concede. The victory was sweet, but Sophia knew the war wasn't over. Late one night, poring over those attic ledgers by lamplight, she discovered a bombshell, evidence of Isabella's past affair with a rival winemaker, which had led to leaked recipes decades ago. It was leverage, pure and simple, but Sophia hesitated, weighing the ethics of using it. The story continued to unfold with layers of intrigue, as Sophia balanced her role as wife, daughter-in-law, and emerging force in the wine world. Friendships deepened, secrets surfaced, and the Tuscan landscape served as a backdrop for personal growth and familial reckonings. Through it all, Sophia's resilience shone, a testament to the real-life dramas that play out in households around the globe, where love, ambition, and revenge intertwine like vines on a trellis. As the golden hues of another Tuscan summer faded into the crisp embrace of fall, Sophia found herself navigating the vineyard's rhythms with a newfound confidence that bordered on vigilance. The harvest feast's fallout had lingered like the last drops in an empty barrel. Isabella's public mishap became fodder for hushed conversations at local markets and upscale dinners in Florence, where society matrons clucked their tongues over espresso. But Isabella, ever the resilient aristocrat, didn't retreat into obscurity. Instead, she channeled her embarrassment into a calculated campaign of subtle undermining. Sophia noticed it first in small ways. Shipments of premium grapes rerouted without explanation, leaving her proposed organic plots understocked, or client emails mysteriously vanishing from the shared inbox Marco managed. "It must be a glitch," Marco would say, rubbing his temples after long days in the fields, his hands still stained with soil from tending the vines that stretched across hundreds of acres under the relentless Italian sun. Sophia, now in her early 30s, had evolved from the wide-eyed newcomer into a force within the estate. Her marketing savvy, honed from years pitching campaigns in Manhattan's cutthroat ad world, translated seamlessly to promoting the Rossi wines. She revamped the website with sleek, user-friendly interfaces, incorporating virtual tours that let buyers from Seattle to Sydney wander the rows of Sangiovese grapes via their screens. Social media became her playground. Instagram reels showcasing the estate's sustainable practices, composting grape pomace into fertilizer, installing solar panels on the outbuildings garnered thousands of likes and inquiries. Yet, Isabella viewed these changes as encroachments on her territory. During a family meeting in the villa's oak-paneled study, surrounded by shelves of leather-bound ledgers and framed awards from wine competitions, Isabella leaned forward in her high-backed chair. "These gimmicks cheapen our legacy," she declared, her voice sharp as a pruning shear. "We've thrived for generations without pandering to the masses." Marco nodded vaguely, caught between loyalty and progress, while Sophia countered calmly, "Times change, Signora. Our yields are up 15% this quarter. That's real growth, not gimmicks." The tension escalated when Isabella enlisted Marco's cousin, Alessandro, a slick lawyer from Rome who visited sporadically. Alessandro, with his tailored suits and perpetual smirk, arrived one weekend under the pretense of helping with legal paperwork for exporting to the States. Over a dinner of wild boar stew simmered with rosemary from the garden, he quizzed Sophia pointedly about her American influences, implying her ideas risked diluting the brand's authenticity. Later that evening, as the family sipped grappa by the fireplace, Sophia overheard them in the hallway, Isabella whispering about protecting the inheritance and Alessandro suggesting audits of Sophia's marketing budget. It was a red flag, waving in the warm breeze that carried scents of ripening figs from the orchard. Sophia didn't confront them directly. Instead, she doubled down on her secret investigations. Those attic ledgers she'd uncovered months ago became her nighttime obsession. Climbing the creaky stairs after Marco fell asleep, she'd pore over yellowed pages under a flashlight's beam, deciphering faded ink that detailed transactions from the 80s. What she found went beyond mere discrepancies. Isabella's early management had involved shady deals with a neighboring estate under the table exchanges of vine cuttings that violated regional appellation rules, potentially jeopardizing their DOCG status if exposed. More damning was evidence of siphoned funds, small sums diverted to personal accounts, disguised as consulting fees to a mysterious entity linked to that long-ago rival winemaker. Sophia pieced it together like a puzzle, cross-referencing with online archives of old newspaper clippings from Florence libraries, which she accessed during solo trips to the city under the guise of shopping for fabrics. The affair wasn't just gossip, it had financial repercussions, explaining why the Vineyard teetered on bankruptcy in the 90s before Isabella's husband bailed it out. Armed with photocopies tucked in a locked drawer, Sophia felt a mix of triumph and unease. Revenge had been satisfying once, but wielding this could shatter the family irreparably. Life at the villa pulsed with daily dramas that kept Sophia grounded. Mornings started with coffee on the terrace, watching workers harvest olives by hand, their ladders propped against gnarled trees that had stood for centuries. She'd join them occasionally, filling baskets with the green fruits destined for pressing into oil that rivaled any from California's groves. Afternoons brought calls from American distributors, negotiating cases of their flagship Brunello, priced at over $100 a bottle stateside. Evenings were for Marco quiet walks along the gravel paths, where they'd discuss dreams of expanding to agritourism, converting old barns into guest suites with views of the Chianti Hills. "You're the heart of this place now," he'd murmur, pulling her close as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. But Isabella's shadow loomed. She began hosting her own traditional tastings, inviting old guard clients and excluding Sophia, framing it as preserving heritage. One sweltering August day, with temperatures pushing 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the conflict boiled over during preparations for the annual Vendemmia Festival, a community event where locals stomped grapes barefoot in massive vats, followed by feasts and folk music. Sophia had organized a modern twist, eco-friendly workshops on biodynamic farming, attracting younger crowds from Florence's universities. Isabella sabotaged it by accidentally double-booking the venue with her cronies for a private luncheon. Chaos ensued, tents collapsed under mismatched schedules, and tempers flared in the courtyard. "This is your doing!" Sophia finally snapped at Isabella, her voice echoing off the stone walls as volunteers milled about confusedly. Isabella feigned innocence, her eyes narrowing. "Me? Kara, you're the one changing everything. Perhaps you should remember your place." Marco intervened, pulling Sophia aside to the cool shade of the cellar, where barrels aged in silent rows. "Let's not escalate," he pleaded, but Sophia's resolve hardened. That night, she confided in her closest ally, a local winemaker named Julia, whom she'd met at those cooking classes. Over glasses of chilled Vermentino at a hillside trattoria overlooking the Arno Valley, Julia listened intently. "Families like the Rossis are like old vines, deep roots, but sometimes rotten at the core," she said, her accent thick with Tuscan warmth. Julia, in her 40s with sun-kissed skin from years in the fields, shared her own stories of in-law battles, advising patience but preparation. Inspired, Sophia began networking more aggressively, attending industry conferences in Bologna and Milan, where she pitched collaborations that bypassed Isabella's approval. One deal with a New York importer promised to double their U.S. market share, a coup that Marco celebrated with a surprise picnic amid the vines, complete with prosciutto sandwiches and fresh mozzarella. Yet, Isabella struck back cleverly. She leaked anonymous tips to a regional wine blog, questioning the authenticity of Sophia's imported innovations, hinting at cultural appropriation. The post went viral in Italian wine circles, drawing snide comments online. Sophia traced it back through mutual contacts, confirming Isabella's handiwork. It stung, but it also galvanized her. Digging deeper into the ledgers, she uncovered a recent entry, a questionable loan from Alessandro's firm, potentially conflicting with estate taxes. Consulting a discreet accountant in Florence recommended by Julia, Sophia learned it could trigger an audit if reported. She held off, opting instead for a subtler move, inviting a journalist from a prominent American wine magazine to profile the estate, focusing on her sustainable initiatives. The article, published online, praised Sophia as the fresh face revitalizing Tuscan tradition, sidelining Isabella entirely. As winter approached, blanketing the hills in rare frosts that crunched underfoot, the family dynamics shifted. Marco, sensing the rift's toll, arranged a mediated dinner at a neutral restaurant in Siena, where medieval towers loomed over cobblestone streets. Seated around a table laden with ribollita soup and pecorino cheese, they aired grievances. Isabella accused Sophia of overreach. Sophia countered with examples of sabotage. Tears flowed, voices rose, but by dessert a tiramisu dusted with cocoa tentative apologies emerged. "I only want what's best for the legacy," Isabella admitted grudgingly. Sophia nodded. "And I want to build on it, not bury it." Marco beamed, hopeful for peace. But beneath the truce, Sophia kept her dossier ready, a safeguard against future storms. She expanded her role, mentoring young interns from local agronomy programs, teaching them about soil pH levels and pest management without chemicals. Friendships blossomed. Weekends brought barbecues with neighbors, where laughter drowned out old resentments. Marco surprised her with a trip to the Amalfi Coast, where they hiked trails overlooking turquoise waters, reaffirming their bond away from the vineyard's pressures. "We've weathered worse," he said, as waves crashed below. Spring brought renewal, buds bursting on the vines, promising a bountiful year. Sophia launched a new label, a blend honoring her dual heritage, marketed as Transatlantic Terroir. Isabella, to everyone's surprise, offered input on the label design, a olive branch of sorts. Yet, whispers of Alessandro's involvement in shady deals persisted, prompting Sophia to anonymously tip off a tax consultant. The inquiry was quiet, but effective Isabella faced minor fines, humbling her further without full exposure. Through it all, Sophia reflected on her journey from humiliated bride to empowered partner. The Tuscan sun, once a harsh spotlight on her struggles, now warmed her victories. Drama ebbed and flowed like the tides of the nearby Tyrrhenian Sea, but Sophia stood firm, her roots deepening in this adopted soil. The vineyard thrived, a testament to blended worlds, where old grudges fermented into something richer, more complex, like the finest vintage left to age gracefully in the dark. The saga deepened as external threats loomed. A rival estate, owned by that same winemaker from Isabella's past, proposed a merger that could swallow the Rossi holdings. Isabella panicked, her secrets threatening to surface in negotiations. Sophia, spotting the opportunity, used her knowledge judiciously, sharing just enough with Marco to steer clear of the deal, positioning their vineyard as independent and innovative. Success followed. Awards at international fairs, features in glossy magazines, and a steady stream of tourists booking stays. Personal milestones marked the passage. Sophia discovered she was pregnant, a joy shared over a non-alcoholic toast with Marco under the pergola. Isabella, softening at the news, knitted tiny booties, her way of bridging the gap. Yet, old habits died hard. A misplaced comment about American parenting fads sparked minor spats, resolved with growing ease. Years blurred into a tapestry of seasons, harsh winters yielding to vibrant springs, each cycle reinforcing Sophia's place. She authored a book on sustainable winemaking, blending anecdotes from New York grit and Tuscan wisdom, hitting bestseller lists in niche markets. Isabella, in her twilight years, ceded more control, finding solace in mentoring grandchildren who toddled through the vines. In the end, the real-life tale of Sophia Rossi wasn't just about revenge. It was a chronicle of resilience, where family bonds, tested by fire, emerged stronger. Under that eternal Tuscan sun, life vintaged on, full of flavor and unexpected turns. As the vines slumbered through another Tuscan winter, their bare branches etching stark lines against gray skies, Sophia embraced the quiet months as a time for introspection and strategic growth. Now in her mid-30s, with a toddler son named Luca tugging at her skirts during morning routines, she balanced motherhood with her expanding role at the estate. Luca, with his father's dark curls and her own bright eyes, brought a joyful chaos to the villa, his laughter echoing through rooms once thick with tension. Sophia had transformed an unused wing into a play area, filled with wooden toys sourced from artisan markets in Lucca, where she'd haggle in fluent Italian honed over years of immersion. Marco doted on their boy, teaching him to identify grape varieties by touch during supervised walks in the greenhouse, where experimental hybrids thrived under controlled heat lamps pushing 80 degrees Fahrenheit even in January. Isabella, approaching her 70s, had mellowed somewhat, her once sharp edges softened by the grandparental glow. She spent afternoons reading picture books to Luca in the sunroom, her aristocratic poise giving way to genuine smiles as he babbled about Nana's stories. Yet, remnants of old rivalries lingered like stubborn weeds. Isabella occasionally slipped into criticism, questioning Sophia's choice to homeschool Luca part-time with American-style curricula, emphasizing creativity over rote learning. "In Italy, we value discipline," she'd remark over afternoon tea, her cup clinking delicately on its saucer. Sophia, wiser now, deflected with humor. "And in New York, we value innovation. Look how well it's working for the vineyard." These exchanges, though milder, kept Sophia alert, her dossier of family secrets updated with fresh notes from discreet inquiries. The estate flourished under Sophia's influence, evolving into a model of eco-luxury. She partnered with universities in Pisa for research on climate-resilient vines, implementing drip irrigation systems that conserved water equivalent to thousands of gallons per acre annually. Tours now included interactive sessions where visitors pressed their own olive oil, the machinery humming in a renovated barn that smelled of fresh wood and earth. Revenue surged, with exports to the U.S., hitting record highs, cases stacked in warehouses, awaiting shipment to boutique shops from Miami to Seattle. Sophia's book, Blended Vines, A Transatlantic Journey in Winemaking, became a sleeper hit, translated into 3 languages and featured at book fairs in Frankfurt. She traveled for signings, leaving Luca with Marco and a trusted nanny, relishing the independence that once seemed impossible. But new storms brewed on the horizon. A severe drought gripped the region one scorching summer, temperatures soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit for weeks, wilting leaves and stressing the roots. Isabella blamed Sophia's experimental follies, arguing for a return to traditional methods during heated board meetings in the villa's conference room, where fans whirred futilely against the heat. "Your solar panels won't summon rain," she snapped, fanning herself with a lace handkerchief. Sophia, backed by data from satellite imagery and soil sensors, pushed for adaptive strategies like shade netting imported from California vineyards. The conflict drew in external players. A consortium of neighboring estates proposed a water-sharing alliance, but whispers suggested ulterior motives acquiring Rossi land on the cheap. Alessandro, the cousin, resurfaced with legal advice laced with self-interest, his visits coinciding with tense dinners where Luca's innocent questions diffused arguments. Sophia dove into crisis mode, leveraging her network. She connected with a hydrologist from Stanford via video calls, crunching numbers on aquifer levels and runoff patterns. Implementing rainwater harvesting tanks, massive structures holding tens of thousands of gallons, proved a game-changer, earning praise from environmental groups and a feature in an Italian sustainability magazine. Isabella, grudgingly impressed, contributed by recalling old family techniques for mulching with local herbs to retain moisture. This collaboration marked a turning point. Over shared meals of chilled gazpacho made from garden tomatoes, they brainstormed solutions, Luca playing at their feet with toy tractors. Personal evolution paralleled professional triumphs. Sophia explored her heritage deeper, tracing ancestors through online genealogy sites during quiet evenings. Discovering a distant relative who emigrated from Tuscany to New York in the early 20th century, she wove this into estate lore, creating a heritage blend wine that sold out pre-release. Marco surprised her with a custom label featuring a stylized family tree, their anniversary gift exchanged under a full moon amid the vines. Intimacy reignited. Weekends escaped to hidden thermal springs in the Apennines, where steaming waters soothed away stresses, steam rising like ghosts in the cool air. Yet, betrayal lurked. Alessandro, eyeing a stake in the estate, forged documents inflating drought damages to secure government subsidies fraudulently. Sophia uncovered it through anomalous entries in the digital ledgers she'd modernized, cross-checking with bank statements during a sleepless night fueled by strong espresso. Confronting Marco first, she presented evidence, like a prosecutor printout spread across the kitchen table as dawn broke. "This could ruin us," she whispered. Luca, still asleep upstairs. Marco, devastated by his cousin's greed, rallied the family. Isabella, upon learning, disowned Alessandro in a dramatic scene in the courtyard, her voice thundering like a summer storm. Blood means nothing without honor. The scandal resolved quietly, with Alessandro ousted and reparations made, strengthening the core trio's bond. Growth extended beyond the villa. Sophia mentored emerging female winemakers through a program she founded, hosting retreats where participants from across Europe shared stories over communal dinners of wood-fired pizza and salads drizzled with estate oil. One mentee, a young Spaniard named Maria, became a close friend, their correspondence blending business advice with life wisdom. Luca thrived, his bilingual chatter filling the air as he helped press grapes during harvest, his tiny feet stomping in shallow bins under careful supervision. As autumn painted the hills in fiery oranges and reds, the family hosted a gratitude festival, a new tradition blending Tuscan feasts with American Thanksgiving elements. Tables groaned under turkey roasted with sage, alongside porchetta and pumpkin ravioli, guests from afar toasting under lantern light. Isabella raised her glass first. To new roots and old soil. Sophia, holding Luca on her hip, felt a profound peace. The weight of past vendettas lifted like morning mist. But life, ever cyclical, introduced fresh chapters. News of a second pregnancy arrived amid blooming spring, a daughter on the way. Isabella, thrilled, redesigned a nursery with antique cribs from Florence antiques shops. Sophia, glowing through morning sickness, expanded the agritourism side, adding yoga retreats amid the olives, drawing wellness seekers from Los Angeles. Challenges persisted. A pest infestation required innovative biopesticides, tested in small plots yielding promising results. Years unfolded. Luca starting school in the village, his backpack slung over shoulders as he waved from the bus. Sophia's influence rippled outward, speaking at conferences in Napa Valley, bridging continents. Isabella, in quiet retirement, penned memoirs with Sophia's editing help, their sessions laced with laughter over shared regrets. The real saga of Sophia Rossi endured as a mosaic of perseverance, where Tuscan winds carried whispers of transformation. From outsider to matriarch, she cultivated not just grapes, but a legacy of harmony amid discord. Under that unwavering sun, the vineyard whispered promises of endless vintages, each bottle a story uncorked. The narrative deepened with global ripples. A documentary crew from a streaming service arrived, captivated by Sophia's journey. Filming captured dawn harvests, family dinners, and candid interviews where Isabella admitted, "She taught me to bend without breaking." The film, Vines of Vendetta, premiered to acclaim, sparking book sales and tourism booms. Personal trials tested resolve. Marco's brief health scare, a minor heart episode from stress, prompted lifestyle shifts, more family time amid the groves. Sophia supported him through recovery, their bond unbreakable. As children grew, Luca dreaming of architecture, little Elena showing early palate for wines the estate passed torches. Sophia stepped into full leadership, Isabella advising from her armchair by the fire. In twilight reflections, Sophia wandered the paths, fingers trailing leaves, grateful for the drama that forged her. Tuscany's embrace, once thorny, now nurtured a life rich as its soil, proving that true revenge lay in thriving beyond the thorns.